Hey friends, welcome to the School of Hard Knocks with Darcie, a place where we become unstuck from trauma and grounded in our healing. I'm your host, Darcie, and I'm a proud multi-graduate of the School of Hard Knocks. Life has a way of teaching us lessons we never asked for, but here we take those lessons and turn them into healing, strength, and self-leadership. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in.
Just a quick reminder. This podcast shares personal stories and lived experiences. It's not therapy. It's not counseling or legal advice. If you need professional help, please reach out to a licensed provider. Hey, School of Hard Knocks, welcome back. Class is in session. I am here with my In Blooming Rebuilt series, and we're being joined today by Kat Parent. Welcome to the School of Hard Knocks, Kat.
I am so glad to be here. I can't wait to attend session today.
Well, I'm excited too. So let me introduce you guys to Kat. So Kat is a Christ follower and a child of God. She has gone through cancer, estrangement of adult children, trauma and effects in the body, ketamine treatment for Christians and recovering from trauma are some of her cups of tea. So we're going to chat a little bit about where Kat was in her life and where she is now. So take us back, Kat. Let us know what led us to where we are today.
Okay, well, I would say that I thought, and I'll just put it with I thought, I grew up in a traditional Christian home, my mother and father, intact, an older brother, and I thought I just had a typical existence, right? As children, we don't know better, we just know what we live in. So I got married young, I had children young, 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls. I homeschooled. Um, so that's a whole lifestyle in itself. Okay, that's still suburbia, that's still normal, whatever that is. And my life got flipped around a little bit in 2008. I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. I was 36. Uh, 19 out of 20 lymph nodes were cancerous, and my surgeon said he had only seen one other person who had that many cancerous lymph nodes that didn't have stage 4. So, and I had 2 weeks prior just become a foster mom. So looking
Wow.
back, I don't even know how I did this. I fostered, we didn't like abandon homeschooling or fostering. We did all the things. It took a village to help do all the things. And I just call it 2008 my cancer year. And I would say that my cancer year was one of the best things to change my life, like one of the best things to happen to me. A side note, I am a published author. I wrote a couple of books about what I learned during that cancer year and why I can say that cancer saved my life. Um, I have it tattooed on my upper chest hair that life is precious, and I learned all of that because of cancer. What I didn't know is that coming right off of cancer treatment, that I was going to go through a valley that was, um, sorry, there's a plane flying. Um, that I was just going to go through a major valley that cancer set me up to live through. So 3 weeks after I finished cancer treatment, I found out that my one of my daughters was being molested, and that was by my father. Okay, so full disclosure, there you go. Um, that wrecked me because cancer treatment for me was me and God getting through something hard. And I learned a lot about trusting in him, and it was he and I had energy for that day, but I um, didn't know if I was going to have the next day, right? So that was just me and God doing things together and learning. Well, then now I've found out that as a homeschool mom, I hadn't protected my child because I taught stranger danger but I didn't teach my children to fear their grandfather because he had not done that to me. So that went to a very dark place, right? A lot of counseling. I turned my father in to CPS because he refused to do it himself. And then I had to reconcile who is this father I had as a child versus who he is at 70 years old when he became a felon. Um, because I always thought of myself as a daddy's girl looking for daddy's attention, blah, blah, blah. But then this happens. So that was 3 years of therapy and trying to learn about grace and forgiveness. That was the school of hard knocks of forgiveness. Learning what that looks like and learning that my dad and I both stand under the same cross, right? And redemption and spoiler alert, this room where I'm sitting in now is my parents' home, and uh, I I am their caregiver. So that's a whole nother story. I'm still taking care of.
Man, that is just so, it's so interesting because for people, because I already know, everybody just went, what? I already know, but I understand you.
Thank you.
I understand you because Kat and I were talking for just a brief minute before we started this recording, and you are new to my life, so you don't know anything about my life. But my dad was an extremely abusive father.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm talking like beating my siblings until their diapers would explode type of abusive. I remember one time when I was 13 years old, and you guys have all heard this before, he tried to break wicker furniture with my body. He choked me one time until I almost threw up when I was 4 years old because I didn't know a multiplication question and I was too young to even know that. So Kat now has just been filled in a little bit that my dad was a survivor of a workplace shooting in
Mhm.
2019. After he did 2 years in brain rehab, my husband and I took care of my dad for the last 3 years and 8 months of his life. And when this came out on my podcast, you better believe somebody had to ask, how could you take care of your dad the way you took care of him when he was the start of your school of hard knocks? And at first, I was a little bit pissed off about the question, right? Because
Mhm.
it's like, well, to a certain degree, my dad did work really hard to try to rectify some of the things from our past in my childhood. And he was a really big participant of my life from the age of 20 until I was 39 when he was shot at work. And most importantly, I'm not who my dad was.
Right.
I'm who my dad should have been in their life.
Mhm.
Also, God doesn't really teach us to judge other people. He teaches us to love other people. So
Right.
I knew when you saw that, I said that, I saw you kind of like, oh boy, that's like the that's where people are going to become judgy. And it's like, listen, when you're a follower of Christ, we are not supposed to be judging what other people are doing. But I
Mhm.
understood right there at that moment because I remember saying it for the first time too when all of this came out, and I knew somebody was going to say, how did you take care of your dad after he used to do what he did? Well, that's my reasoning behind it.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. As a Christ follower, I like to think of myself as not religious. I have a relationship with Jesus. So I take the Bible and I want to be a biblical Christian. I'm not a denominational Christian. I'm pretty sure this the in the Ten Commandments it says to honor your father and mother.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say if they're deserving, like in the fine print. Um,
Absolutely.
it doesn't say if they treat you well.
Mm-hmm.
So my goal now, I don't always do it perfectly. Am I perfectly forgiving? And people can come at me. I guess sometimes at least I appreciate that you knew what it takes to do this. It's
Yes.
part of my story, so I just do it every day, so it's not that big of a deal. So sometimes people react when they hear my story and then they're like, "Oh, but you understand what
Mhm.
that takes and what Jesus has to do in my life in order for me to keep that as my goal, to honor my parents for him, not because they're deserving. And I have to deal with my own resentments, right? So I have to keep forgiving, right? Because um, you know, again, going back to that childhood that I thought was so normal, it wasn't, right? I didn't learn until 4 years ago that I was horribly neglected as a child. I had no one to teach me how to grow up. My parents were off doing their own things. And of course, that affects, even now, my decision to caregive for my parents. Well, I'm still giving up my life,
Yeah.
for my parents. If I wanted a Christmas tree as a child, I had to put it up. I was the youngest. Nobody else cared. Nobody else did it. If I wanted the house to be somewhat clean, well, guess what? That's how I got attention. Oh, now I'm no longer the scapegoat or the lost child, as I've finally heard the term. I had to please, and that's how I got, if I serve others, and that's a whole nother story of just trying to figure out, am I loving? I really had to deconstruct all of the things because I've just been conditioned to serve. And
Hmm.
I have learned that can contribute, that kind of personality that I developed can lead to breast cancer. Have you heard that?
I have not, and that is terrifying for me thinking about that
So,
because of all of the things.
yeah, so Gabor Mate, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but I'm kind of a trauma nerd at this point because I've had to do a lot of healing in my basement of
Mm.
trauma that I've experienced. But he identified four different criteria for breast cancer, in addition to stress. So, how many women have extreme stress in their lives? But yeah, so be careful.
Count me in.
Take care of yourself. So if you suppress anger, I'm not sure if I'm going to get all four of them. Suppressing anger, that's and I definitely suppressed anger. I was in a difficult marriage, right? Because I grew up with not really healthy parents, obviously. So I married, guess what? Someone that wasn't great. So uh, I suppressed anger, dutiful personality, the feeling like it's my job to serve others. Um, the stress factor, that was another one. And I'm not going to sit here and make you wait while I remember the last one, but uh, I got that from The Body Says No by Gabor Mate. Love his work. I don't agree with everything that he has, but he has some really insightful things in there that fit. So I can say, well, I lived it.
Yeah.
He says it, I lived it. There you go. Anyway, that I wish the story stopped there, Darcie, but it sure did not. So, dealing with that with my father, the next shoe to drop was my husband, and that I had been with for 25 years, decided to have an affair. But oh, we couldn't just have a typical affair. We had decided our foster home was closed, not by our choice, but by allegations, blah, blah, blah. So we decided, I thought, but we were going to move our family to Arizona and take advantage of, there was that housing bubble that happened around that time where land was cheap. And we thought, oh, we'll take our homeschooled family down there and get a little bit of land and a few animals and a garden and do all the things. Great. So this one decided, um, well, let's sell our home and we can live in a travel trailer until we moved down. So we gave away and sold everything from our home and lived in a little travel trailer that we bought on a friend's property. They had hookups and all that stuff, just waiting for my husband to get a job so we could get down to Arizona. Sadly, I didn't know that when we put the for sale sign in our yard of our home, he had started an affair. So all those job leads I spent all those sweaty days in a cancer finding for him, he wasn't following up on because he had a girlfriend. And that we were there through the summer, and that's hot in a camper because it's not got a lot of insulation, so it's real hot. And then we got into the fall, and I'm like, what is this going on? Like he couldn't find any jobs with his college education that I helped him get and all that, you know. And so one night in October, he just says, I'm going to go move in with my friend Mike and think about my life. And I was like, why can't you think about your life here? I mean, at that time, two of my kids were old enough to have been independently moved out on their own. My younger two were 11 and 13. And what do you mean? Yeah, I need to go live with my friend Mike and just think through my life. Okay, what are we supposed to do? Because it's cold and I live in Nebraska. I don't even know where you live, Darcie.
Wisconsin.
Oh, okay. So you know what cold is. You're
I
getting
do.
colder than I do. If you can imagine a little thin travel trailer with propane tanks, and I had nowhere to go because guess what? My dad had been a pedophile. So at this point, I can't go home. I have no one to go to. But for the Lord, I had had a friend from church offer us her basement once upon
Mhm.
a time, and I laughed at her kind of at the time. Oh, thank you. That's very nice of you to offer, but we're going to move out of state. Guess where we moved? So in 6 months, my younger two and I moved 3 times. That moving in itself, of course, I had a rocking chair by the time we got to our rental home, and I filed for separation, he filed for divorce, and I had a rocking chair to my name. I had no job because I was a homeschool mom, right? So then it was a whole another ball game. So this is kind of painting the picture to how my children were affected. My younger two, they both have October birthdays. They both, one turned 12 and one turned 15. I hope I got that math right. The week their dad left us. So then I have to get a job, right? So not only did their father abandon us, but then I'm abandoning them because now I have to leave. I got a night job, went through a severe depression, um, and I just kind of numbed out by that time. I'd had some pretty major things, and I didn't know that that was trauma. I'd been treated by counselors. Never once did anybody mention, hey, if you're numbing out like that, you're probably experiencing some trauma. Nobody helped me with that. So I goofed. And I'll just say, I wasn't as available for those children during their time when they were hurting because I was hurting. And as a byproduct of that, those two kids made my life hell on earth because I wasn't meeting their needs. And I wasn't able to see that at that point. Um, Ew. Yeah, and estrangement now is just such an epidemic. And it hurts so bad to be a homeschool mom and then have these kids just not realize I didn't throw the grenade that blew up our family, but I got to take the brunt of their their hurt and their pain, and they didn't want to go to counseling. And my youngest turned to drugs, and it was a mess.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so then the next shoe to drop. I don't know how much time we have, Darcie. I'll just
As much as you need, Kat.
go to the next one. This is in 2014. So their dad left in 2012, and we got divorced. In 2014, my oldest son, I had kind of a dicey relationship with him, and maybe people can understand that. His wife is very controlling. I hate to throw around the narcissism stuff, but it's on the scale. Um, And so communication with him was really spotty. And they got pregnant with my first grandbaby. Yay, little girl, wonderful, okay. But upon her arrival, they decided that our whole household had to be vaccinated against whooping cough. We had to take antibiotics and get a doctor's note to prove that we weren't trying to kill their baby with whooping cough. I might be, saying that in kind of inflammatory terms, but that's how I felt. I'm like,
Hmm.
I raised 4 children. I think I did an okay job with you. I'm not trying to kill your baby. I know how to wash my hands and not be around, and spread sickness. And no, I'm not getting a doctor's note to prove that we're well enough to be in your baby's presence. I mean, anyway, um, they still would not let us be around the baby. So my 2 younger children didn't ever meet her. I got one picture in the hospital of a 4 generation photo, one of my mother, me, my son, and the baby. Um, 18 days later, My daughter-in-law smothered her to death, accidentally, is my understanding. Um, I don't ever get on this side of heaven to meet my granddaughter. For what? For what? So, of course, then they changed the story. So it's a risk for me to be on your podcast and tell the truth. So if people find this podcast and find me and they've been told that she died of SIDS, I'm just going to tell the truth and you can come after me. I've gone through enough that my skin has gotten pretty thick. So
Mm-hmm.
if you can't handle the truth, okay. But my son told me the morning that she died, I was able to get a hold of him, um, because I didn't go to the hospital. I found out because the hospital told me my granddaughter had expired. They called me in the 2 a.m. and said, your granddaughter has expired. And I said, what? I'm in a dead sleep like this. And I called them back because after I got off the phone, I'm like, that couldn't have been real. Of course, they wouldn't tell me that what had happened. Nobody would talk to me. That was another deep depression. That didn't make any sense. That made no sense to me. And by that time, talk about numbed out. So I don't know if other people have experienced this, but I was in such a dark hole by that point because that's a form of gaslighting in itself. Like
Mm-hmm.
you kept me from this baby, essentially accusing me of trying to kill her if I didn't follow your silly rules. And I'm going to say that's silly, over the top, just controlling. That's all it was. Her family didn't have to do those things. Nobody else had to do those things to be around her baby, just me and my household. Um, for what? I could, anyway, it was just astounding. So deep, dark place. I asked for as much help as I could from my church, from a psychiatrist. I took medicine. I'm asking for prayer. I just, I didn't know it was trauma still, which is almost crazy because I'm in the psychology field, but psychologyizing was for other people, not for me. I'm the one that's supposed to be doing the healing, right? The healer. Um, Numbness, dissociation, all of those things, just dark, 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 dark. Well, that was part of that time where my kids saw the worst of me. They were giving me crap because where's mom? I would be, going out with friends, drinking too much. I had never drank for their entire existence, but I didn't know what I didn't know. So yeah, I made a lot of mistakes during that time. Relationships with men that I had no business having, making big decisions, getting engaged when I had no business. I was suffering. I did so many things that were outside of my character. And when I look back now, I was so numbed out that I didn't give a
Mm-hmm.
flip what I did. And I was just like glassed over. Um, and then your brain starts to do things to kick you out of depression, right? At least mine did. Um, okay, so pleasure, we're trying to find things to kick us out of it. And I'm looking at all the other places, I just felt like, where's God? This is the same person who wrote books about life is precious, remember, tattooed on myself and
Mm-hmm.
all these things. But here I am, a mess, a mess. And our family just fell apart. I have no relationship still with my son. He has three other children. Um, it's been off and on. Uh, they, the last thing they cut me off for was a birthday party in which they weren't there and nor was I, but they cut me off because of what somebody else said. Make it make sense. I, it's been 5 years since I've seen those other grandbabies. So that's three, I mean, four. So one is in heaven, and the three other ones that I have no relationship with. Um, Ran into them at the local Sam's Club. I greeted my son with, hello, son, because I wanted my grandkids to know he's my son. This stranger I'm meeting in Sam's Club is my child. And I wanted them to ask, they're old enough to go, why does that lady call you son?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to say I'm perfect. It hurts. It hurts. Um, but I've also moved past that. Did you want to say anything? Because there's more. Do you want
I
to
mean, if
interject?
you could see the notes that I'm taking over here so that I can go back so I don't interrupt you. So you just
Oh,
keep on it going.
okay. Well, so I thought in 28, no, 2017, I met my current husband. Um, I'm going to kind of walk carefully since I'm still married to him um, on how much I would say there. So this would be a good time to mention that after 12 years, I got a degree in chemical dependency counseling, uh, drug and alcohol. So by uh, 2017, I met my current husband. By that time, my kids are angry. I have the only good relationship I've had with my children is the one that was molested, and she lives 5 hours from me. So otherwise, my other kids were just making life as miserable as I could. And I had this crazy hope that they would go, "Oh, mom's finally found somebody that's good to her and treats her well, and they would be happy for me." No, no, they were so used to me being child-centric for their entire lives. My life, they were the sun, and I rotated around them and
Hmm.
their needs and trying to meet four kids' um, needs and desires and wants and all those things. So for me to get married, it didn't matter. I think I could have married the most perfect person, an angel themselves, and they wouldn't have appreciated that. So one daughter didn't even come to our family wedding, so it was just family, and she refused to come. And anyway, I married a former alcoholic. So again, I'm going to go back into my childhood and how my childhood of neglect set me up, which I didn't know until just a few years ago, to look for the same kinds of people to be partnered with. Now he's not um as bad as my first husband that I married when I was 19. But I hadn't done the work to know because I still at this point when I got married to him, I didn't know that I had been traumatized. I hadn't dealt with trauma at all. And um, so our he outwardly was respectful, opened my car door. That was one of those things that looking back now, I think, oh, that's so ridiculous. But that was like a thing that I'd always wanted somebody to treat me like a queen. Oh, he did all of those things, but he also in secret was drinking and lying. And he'd say, oh, go visit your daughter. Go, go spend time with her. And I'm a drug and alcohol counselor. Like, okay, so after a while I'm learning, okay, when I leave town, he's he's drinking, he's getting drunk while I'm gone. Of course, I don't know. So this is triggering, distrust, betrayal, which is a whole nother ballgame of trauma if you're not familiar with what betrayal does to a person. It's a distinct part of trauma. And so the constant lying, constant, I find evidence, and then he goes, okay, you're right. Never confessing. And it's hard, and I've had to learn with people in abusive relationships. It's super hard when somebody is like 80% good to you, but
Hmm.
the 20% is complete abuse. And so I've had to learn that too. Like, okay, um, again, a life of gaslighting. I think my life is this 80%, but what are we doing with that 20% that's just crumbling my trust? I'm starting to have health problems. I'm starting to have autoimmune issues. If you're not familiar with the connection of autoimmune and stress or trauma, it's connected. So now I've had cancer. Now I have autoimmune problems because I can't trust where I'm at. My body is um, fighting itself because I'm staying in an unsafe environment. Um, to 2021, when I say my brain broke, and to look back on it now, I had a nervous breakdown, I guess is what they would call it in the olden days. Um, I was looking on his phone, so not only were we having problems with alcohol, but sexuality. not just female attraction that I have to, not, I'm no 20 something year old. I'm in my 50s. So I was in my 40s when this happened. Um, and I find something on his phone. So his behavior is weird, and I'm starting to hear the pinging of, okay, so when we got married, it was a rule that I can look at his electronics at any time because my former husband prevented me, locked me out of all of his electronics. So I'm like, something's not right. So I'm just going to check his phone. To which I see some disturbing images that he liked on social media platforms that I didn't even know you could see the stuff that I saw. Um, my brain broke. My brain broke. It just, I lost my ability to trust. I lost my ability to trust God. And if anybody's, I feel bad because I've been that judgy person. I've been a Christian since I was 7. And I'm sure I have judged people who have said, I don't trust God. Well, my truster broke. I can't explain it other than it was a biological, neurological break. I couldn't trust anybody, including God. Um, I had to allow my brain to heal because now I've been betrayed by my father. I've been betrayed by my ex-husband, who I was with for 25 years. I've been betrayed, sort of, by my son, who kept me from his child, and now my current husband. That's just the short list of betrayal. Some people experience one time in their life of being betrayed, maybe two, but I'm not sure if you have every major player that's male in your life um, betray you. And what happens is your brain, the hippocampus is like a file cabinet. I've heard this explained before. It's a great way to explain it. It's like it falls out on the floor and all your files of your life just are a jumbled mess. And and then your amygdala, the fire alarm center of your brain, goes threat, 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 threat. Your life isn't what you thought it was. And then your hippocampus is going to ruminate like, what really was the truth? What isn't the truth? Okay, so what am I facing now with this current husband of, you're not even attracted to me. Um, Most people might go, well, why didn't you just divorce him? Oh, that's a good question. Good question. At the time, I was living here as a caregiver of my parents. So for him to leave, okay, part of my problems go away if I were to divorce. But there goes my financial provision, my insurance for someone who's had breast cancer and has other health problems. All sorts of things go away that don't make my life any easier. So I have a little bit more compassion for people who feel stuck and can't leave, or feel like they can't leave. Also, I'm going to go back to my childhood again that taught me um, that there isn't another side of abuse. There isn't another side where you can be free. I'm still working on those things today to, even though, okay, my husband moved out, we were separated for 18 months. He just moved back in. I'm still caregiving. It's been 5 years that I've lived here caregiving. It's not easier. I've done a lot of work with the brain in my basement. Literally, okay, right after that happened, Darcie, I was sitting on my patio multiple times. I would be rocking and I would be saying, I'm okay right now. No one is attacking me right now. I'm okay right now. Again, I didn't know anything about trauma. I can just tell you that I had to cheerlead myself to leave the house. Um, and maybe somebody within the sound of my voice relates to that. That's why I share this crappy story of my life because someone probably has had these things happen and maybe they don't know what that is. I was scared for my life. I mean, I literally was threat everywhere. I had IBS started. Okay, it's time for a colonoscopy. The medical community couldn't help me. Oh, let's just give you a pill. No, my body is in full threat mode. That's what I found that meant. I'm in threat, and I don't know how to get out. I don't have the means to live on my own to get out from my toxic parents who fight every day and, bleh, they'll be married 60 years this year. I can't believe that. Anyway, um, I couldn't escape. I couldn't figure out how to escape this existence that I was in. So I just started looking on YouTube and learning about neurobiology. It was during that time that I wrote two books. I look back and I go, again, I don't know how I started a business. I created my own website. I don't know how I was functioning, Darcie, how I
Mhm.
got any of those things done. But
Your
all,
subconscious was stepping up big time for you because that is what keeps us safe in so many.
yeah,
I mean, and I'm experiencing the same type of thing. My dad unfortunately passed away 7 months ago this month.
wow,
And after my husband and I took care of him for almost 4 years, I was the one who had to find him and thought that he was still savable and tried breathing life into his body to find out that it just wasn't going to happen.
yeah,
Hardest walk I've ever been on in my life. But my walk with the Lord is strong. It is
yeah,
strong. And in these 7 months, it's been hard. It's been sad. I'm identity shifting. I don't know who I am as my number one priority, which I know you can relate to because you were homeschool mom. So then what happens when all of that changes? Your identity is changing. So do I know who I am? Well, I mean, yeah, of course, I'm not in psychosis. I know who I am. But when
yeah,
your main title gets stripped from you, it's like, okay, so, but who really am I now? Because when people would say, what do you do? Well, I take care of my disabled father was always the first thing that came out of my mouth. Now it's like, well, what is the first thing that comes out of my mouth? What do I say now? But in the
yeah,
last 7 months, I've stayed so faithful to my walk with God that He has not just opened doors, He's opened floodgates for me. I mean, even bringing people like you into my life, these conversations that I have, these relationships that are being built with just wholesome, beautiful people that have walked a very hard walk in their life and have come through it at the end. These are the type of people that I needed in my life my whole entire life when I felt alone, when I
yeah,
felt scared, when I felt confused. And now I feel like a whole new foundation in my life is being built. I
yes,
feel like I never had a foundation in my life. My whole life was kind of built on soggy ground. And
wow,
it just kept crumbling and kept sinking and crumbling and sinking. And it's like, oh, I'm going down. The whole
yeah,
ship's going down.
yes,
Like, what do we do? And
yes,
now this foundation is like, you can feel it. You can feel the shift when it happens. You
yeah,
can feel the strength. You can feel the okay. You can feel the I know that I can handle hard things when they come at me. I'm more well equipped now than I was before. So it is such a weird place to be to when you walk through. Not everybody walks through the level of trauma that some people have walked through, but the majority of people don't walk through compact trauma.
yes,
That's what people don't understand when they hear some of these stories and it's like, hey, Darcie, do you have to say anything yet? Because I got more. They're like, oh my gosh. Like, that is a layer sandwich of hard, 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 hard.
yeah,
And you don't hear that all that often.
yeah. Well, I figure that's why God has given me this story. So just from what you said there, I've got two thoughts. One, I've really had to struggle with identity. So I'm going to
Mhm.
challenge you and those that are in your audience to think about this. Our identity as Christians should never be in the roles that we fill, right? So if I hung my hat on being a mother, well, my kids would say I failed.
Yeah.
As a spouse, my first husband would say I failed. It was all my fault, right? Um, as a daughter, maybe I failed. As a mother, I failed because I didn't protect my child like I should have. Um, but here's what can't be taken away, no matter what anybody says, is that we are children of God.
Mm.
We embrace that is our one and only identity. Everything else is a role, and everybody else can have an opinion about that role, and they can say whatever they want. Like I said, there will probably be people that will find this and they will say whatever they want about me as a person. And okay, but I'm a child of God. I know that that's my only true identity that no one can take away. And so I just am embracing that and trying to live that audience of one, that kind of thing. And two, another thought about suffering, because we know the Bible talks about suffering. But I don't know about you, but I kind of think like, hey, can you share a little bit with somebody else? Because I'm a little
Yeah.
tired of feeling picked on here.
Yeah.
You know, I think I've had, I think of the prayer of Jabez back in the day. I'm not sure that you're old enough to know about that whole prayer of Jabez business, but it was about God expanding our territories. And I go, I don't want to have breast cancer as a whole village of people that I have influence over, plus molestation survivors, plus betrayal survivors, plus You know what? I like my territory to shrink,
Yeah.
to have less
Yeah.
territory.
Hmm.
But there's a reason. There's a reason that brought me to you. And I thought, remember in Job where it talks about um, God and Satan had a conversation about Job?
Yes, that is one of my favorite books in the Bible is Job because it is everything you're saying is so relatable. Because it's like what I have been so good. I thought at least not where I thought that I could have everything stripped of me. But like you're saying, even with the territories, childhood trauma, my parents separating, I was in a foster home. I had an ectopic pregnancy when I was 17 years old. I emancipated myself. I went through alcoholism. I went through corporate burnout. I went through corporate betrayal. Then my dad got shot. Then we did. I was like, wait, it's too much. It's too
Yes.
much. But yes, the story of Job and the way he stayed so faithful the entire time and he was blessed tenfold at the end of it. I was like, oh my gosh, I just said that to my brother, which is why God's having you say that to me now, is just to make me get it concreted in my mind.
Hmm.
This is why I just said before, God has not just opened doors, He's opened floodgates, because this is my blessing from Him tenfold,
Mm.
because I
Yeah.
have not shied away. I
Right.
have integrated myself in my faith. My husband and I are on a read the Bible challenge in a year. Today is 233 days that we've been reading the Bible. All
Nice.
of the time, we are integrated in church and volunteering. And I
Hmm.
know God is finding favor in that. I know
Hmm.
that people that are listening to these stories and they're hearing my story are feeling like there's always hope.
Yeah.
There's always hope. But when you said that about the territories, I was like, man, that just made it lighter for me. What you
Mm.
just said. Because I thought, if I had to go through all of that hard stuff to get the experience and healing through it, because now I'm grounded in healing, to be able to help a multitude of other people find theirs, I
Yeah.
mean, then I guess sign me up because
Yeah.
I'm okay. If I can use my journey and my story to show another person, man or woman, you can still get out of that victim mentality, be a
Hmm.
survivor, live your life, and give other people hope. I mean, that is just such a beautiful thing.
Amen. So my take with that conversation of Satan and God is, have you considered my servant Job, right? So I just wonder if there isn't more than one conversation. Now, I'm not saying that I'm as righteous as Job, because it said, Job is righteous above many things. So um, I'm not saying I'm equal with that, but what if instead of this is some sort of punishment, which is what I felt like for a long time, I'm just
Mhm.
being punished. Okay, God, enough, Uncle. If I haven't learned the lesson yet, what is it? But what if, Darcie, your life and my life are ones that are chosen because other people can't do and give glory to where glory is due out of suffering? What if this is a chosen road?
Yeah.
Um, that changes everything for me. If I
Mhm.
consider how do I honor suffering that you've allowed me to go through, just like you said. to I'm not sure if I'm at that same place, Darcy, where I would say, sign me up. Let me go through that again so I can
Mhm.
no. But it doesn't make sense otherwise. I'd be 6 foot under if I didn't have purpose. Okay, so that helps me go, how do I honor this? Well, I honor it because I'm going to talk to you and to whomever has ears to hear that God can and does go through that icky valley. And if you get a bunch of valleys and you just don't ever see the mountaintop, he's still there. He's still there. And you might need to let your brain heal. That's what I had to learn. It took years, literally years. And I was reading the books and I was doing the body practices and trying to take care of mind, body, spirit. I mean, I was putting a lot of work in, but it's also the transformation of the mind, right? I'm still, it bothers me to think like, okay, this little child that was neglected, that was me. I'm still responsible for the sins that I do, despite because I was set up and you were set up from a crappy childhood to make a bunch of stupid decisions. But you know what? We're still responsible for those
Mhm.
things and we still sit in our sin, but not long. We don't have to stay there. So we can be forgiven. We can live a life of forgiveness. I can forgive my dad. I can serve him his dinner. Um, because we're under the same cross, right? It's the
Yep.
same road of salvation for me as it is for him.
Hmm.
Do I know if I'm going to see him in heaven or not? I don't. I don't know. He goes to church where he's allowed to go to church because he can't go just anywhere. Um, I don't know, but we are under the same cross and we have the same grace and mercy and love afforded to both of us. Um, so, yeah, I think that's a great point about not shying away from territories, not shying
Hmm.
away from the road that's chosen. And we can just look at every day with, okay, today I don't know what's happening, but I'm going to walk in it, and um, I'm going to walk showing your glory. My story for your glory. I had a T-shirt made with that on it, just because it's personal to me.
Hmm. Yeah. That might be um that might be the name of your podcast episode.
Yeah, that's
That's what
perfect.
I'm writing down. I actually also wrote under the same cross, my story for your glory, I think is what it's gonna be.
Mm,
Cat parent story. That's what I
mm,
think it's gonna be. And there's so many things that you said. I mean, I have written down a plethora of things over here. But one thing that just comes to my mind right away, first of all, is I know the struggle of taking care of your dad the way you do. My dad, with his brain injury, he was more physically impacted than he was mentally impacted. But he unfortunately, God said, well, I'm going to take away his physical ability, but I'm also going to take away speech, and he's going to have aphasia too. So unless if automation came out, like I love you or good morning. But one of the first things my dad said when he came out of his coma was, I was a bad dad. And
wow.
we were sitting in a room at Shirley Ryan in Chicago. It's the top-notch place in the world for spinal and brain injury. And I remember sitting there and it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I just looked at him and said, Dad, everything is fine. Everything is okay. Because what am I going to get out of it to say, oh, so we're admitting things now?
Yeah.
Like I sat there like, man, my dad must have been stuck in this coma for 3 months, just reliving it, thinking it, everything he did to his children, everything that he did to his ex wife, every bad thing he's ever done. And for the first thing to come out was, I was a bad dad. I do remember feeding my dad
Mhm.
and thinking, I bet you I'm taking better care of my dad than he ever took care of me as a child.
Mm.
And for probably, honestly, the first 2 weeks of him being home, I would cry
Yeah.
because it would just break me. Because I just thought, I know he wasn't holding me like that. I
Right.
know he wasn't wiping my mouth for me and he wasn't gently telling me stuff. But
Mhm.
that's the difference from me and who my dad was. My dad was a good man when he found the Lord. That is what changed my dad's life.
Right.
That's what gave me he didn't talk about this. We were not raised in a godly home. We didn't pray before meals. We didn't pray before bed. My grandma sometimes would have us pray, but she was a Jehovah Witness when I was a kid. So it wasn't introduced to me the way that it should have been.
Hmm.
And that's okay because I know as an adult that God was with me for my whole entire childhood. I know that He walked me through every single thing and walks me through every single thing now. And that relationship has become so sound that, I don't worry so much about what other people think about things, like you've said it a couple of times where somebody's probably going to find this and they're going to have their opinion and I just don't care about it. And that's where I got in my life. I don't care anymore. And I don't care for a couple of reasons, but the biggest one is if you would have protected me when I was a child, I wouldn't have things to talk about. This is my life, this is my journey now, and this is how I'm choosing to heal and stay grounded in my healing. A lot of people can't take accountability. My mom will not take accountability for a lot of her part in parts of my childhood. My dad took all the accountability, which is why I took care of him for the last 6 years of his life
Hmm.
because he was deserving of it. And not only do we take care of him, he was told at least 20 times a day how loved he was.
Mm.
We took him to concerts, outdoor venues, fireworks, the zoo. I'd have to hold his hand just so he could feed goats.
Mm.
We took him fishing. I did more with my dad in the 4 years that he lived at home than he ever did with me in my whole entire childhood.
Yeah.
Like wholesome things. And it wasn't for me, it wasn't filling a little girl void. It felt like it was the right thing to do. It
Mm.
felt like God was, telling me, this is why you're walking this walk, Darcie, because your dad was never shown this kind of love.
Hmm.
I always say that I know what my dad's childhood was, and it was horrible. It was
Yeah.
horrible. I mean, he was beaten terribly as a child by his stepdad and by his mom and called all kinds of horrible, disgusting names. At one point, I call her my dad's mother. I do not call her my grandmother. But my dad's mother looked at my mom before they got married and said, how can you even think about dating this ugly POS? And it used to humiliate him like that. So as I've gone through my own healing, I don't excuse anything that my parents did.
Right.
There's an understanding. There's
Yeah.
an understanding because, like you just said, our formative years in particular, 0 to 7, is when our brains are little sponges and we're soaking it all in. And it's like, well, this is how we're supposed to act to people. This is normal. I didn't realize that my life was abnormal until I was about 10 and I spent the first night at a friend's house.
Hmm.
And I was like, what's going on? Why are we all sitting around the table? And
Yeah.
why is there like no drinking? And what's no one's yelling? Like, oh, something's wrong at my house. That was like my first like
Yeah.
something's not right. But when you don't know what you don't know.
That's right.
That's why a lot of children that are in those situations aren't allowed to exit those situations because they're going to be like, something ain't right here.
Yeah.
So, wow, I'm blown away. I mean, I've written down so many things with you. Stage 3 breast cancer, 19 of 20 lymph nodes impacted. I mean, wow, that is just miracles on miracles in your life and being able to go through what you went through. How long did you have to have treatment for?
Just really that year. So mine wasn't hormonal in its feeding of the cancer. So I didn't have to do like estrogen follow up for 5 years. A lot of people are the anti-estrogen. So it was really my cancer year. That's what I usually say.
Yeah, yeah. And foster parents. I mean, that has been a dream of mine and my husband's for so long. I just feel like my husband and I weren't able to have children together. So when I met him, he had a 4-year-old who was mine. My husband and I have been together for 27 years. So I taught my daughter how to tie her shoes, and I've been there through every single thing in her entire life. I remember the first day she called me mom. I mean, I just, it's amazing, but I feel like I have this desire to foster children. I'm the oldest of 9. So I
Wow.
never considered myself to not have children.
Yeah.
So foster parents, I give them so much credit because you're taking kids that, a lot of them are broken and a lot of them have been in situations that are hard. How long did you do that for? And I mean, tell me a little bit about the impact of that on your life.
Well, I would consider myself a fierce advocate, which has gotten me in some trouble. It
Yeah.
got me in trouble as a foster parent. So I did that for 3.5 years. And as I
Mm,
alluded to, our foster home was shut down.
mhm,
Um, it's interesting how they do that in the system. They didn't say, oh, your foster home is shut down. They just refused to send any more kids. So we mostly had teenagers. But I had three allegations made against me, and um, it was one was from a worker, one was from a judge, and one was from a teenager who had a baby in my home. And so I didn't have any problems. I loved fostering. It was a mission at that time. I loved having those kids in our home. I'm still Facebook friends with some of them today. Um, and it's interesting to see what happens to them. It's not usually a good story because they were so broken by the time they came. Um, but I really felt like it was a mission field that came to my door. And my kids struggled a bit with it. I mean, we had talked about doing it before we included the kids in the decision. And of course, they're kids. They didn't know any more than I did, like how that would impact to have some of these children with behaviors coming in the household. Um, so I thoroughly encourage people to do so. I would encourage you to, count the cost of what it would mean to have that mission field, but it's so valuable. I mean, those kids, they need consistency and love and non-judgment. A lot of them love their parents. That
mhm,
was a huge frustration for me. Like I homeschooled my kids and my kids, turn their backs on me. But these kids that have been horribly abused or neglected loved their parents. It didn't matter. They wanted their parents so badly. And so my commitment, interestingly, because I have nothing better to do, Darcie, is I just started a part-time job where I am helping bio families and foster families work together so that the bio families meet their objectives to get their kids back home.
mm,
So I'm still involved in that, and that's really rewarding to hear. And it's interesting now because even last night I met with a bio parent, and she just felt the safety enough to tell me her story, or at least part of her childhood, and it was horrific, horrific. And then I think, well, you know, my criticisms of how she's parenting her child right now seem very small. When you come from all this terrible, terroristic behaviors, and then you're expected to grow up and be acceptable. And I'm able to talk to her a little bit about the concept of true north. I think you can probably pick up on that if we don't know what true north is, what is healthy and acceptable, and I'm not going to say normal because who cares about what people think
right.
normal is, but what is healthy and acceptable behavior? If you didn't grow up knowing what the benchmark was, of course you're not going to meet it, right? So, okay, so she's dropping all these curse words in front of her child. Well, maybe you grew up with that, but can we like not do that? Because
Mhm,
you don't want that child to be repeating those kinds of things. And that's really an expectation as a parent is that we're not going to talk in certain ways around our children. But if you've heard that all your life, how would you know? How would you know that I don't talk to my kids that way or that it's
mhm,
not expected? I mean, our world is rife with this right now. I think society as a whole is trying to rip the nuclear family, and that's probably a whole nother topic, Darcie. But there is a need for these kids to see what healthy behavior is and what love looks like because it's not evident in so many homes.
Yeah, that was why my desire to be a foster mom was always there. Because I feel like, I know that my parents loved me.
Yeah.
They just weren't strong enough to break the cycle.
Right.
They didn't have, I often talk about this on my podcast that, back in the day, if people wanted to search for help, they'd have to humble themselves, first of all. Then they have to take out this big book and go to the yellow pages and search for a place that they could go to and then pick up a thing that used to be attached to a wall
Right.
to do the dial thing, to call, to set the appointment, to
Yeah.
actually go in. Now people pick up a box and they say, "Hey, so and so, I need some help with mental health." And all of these things pop up and all of these places pop up and it's so readily accessible for people. The fact is that the desire to change has to be there.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how accessible that something is, the desire for change has to be there. Now, with me having eight siblings, there's nine of us. Eight out of nine of us are productive parts of society. It is a wild, off the chain statistic. The
Yeah.
things that we grew up with and the things that we saw and were pumped into our heads. I have one brother who may not ever circle around, he's an alcoholic. I have another brother that was addicted to meth for over 2 decades. Heartbreaking, horrible. My mom gave him to me when he was 14 years old. I was 21.
Hmm.
I was barely figuring my life out, and her boyfriend at that time, or whatever he was at that time, didn't want children at all, like any of her children. And she gave all of my siblings to my dad's family, which, as we talked to a little bit, obviously, where did my dad get his learned behaviors? So that we just hand them all off to basically people who are direct relatives of the man from the hot place himself. And how did we expect for that to all turn out exactly? So my one brother, though, I talk about him on here all the time. So everyone's like, "Oh, she's talking about Angus," because I'm proud of him. He's like my brother's son, and he's been sober now for over 2 years.
Wow.
He's a part of an elite group of people that beat that ugly, terrible, horrible disease. Just so horrible what that had done to him in his life. And he goes to church and he volunteers and he worships and he's a great dad and he's a hard worker. And it's so wonderful when you see God move through people. And then it goes to show, like, are some people chosen to walk those paths for the purpose of helping other people?
Yeah.
Everybody's probably heard the saying, "Well, God only gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers." And I'm like, "Sir, I have got to be like the strongest person until I start the podcast." Now I'm like, "Man, I've got like a whole alliance of soldiers to stand, shoulder to shoulder with," because there's a lot of people like yourself that have come on here and I get done and I look at my husband and my mind is blown. I'm like, these people are incredible, wonderful human beings that made a choice to not allow the things that they were going through to take them down forever. To let a moment be a moment. Don't let it be a day, a week, a month, a year, your whole life. You can get help for things when you want to, but you have to want to do it. I didn't
Mhm.
want to stay in a victim mentality. I didn't want to say, "Well, I was growing up this way, so I'm just going to stay an alcoholic my whole entire life." I saw where that got my parents, and it wasn't any place good.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of having to make decisions about things. Tell me about your books. What are the name of your books?
So one of them is pretty lighthearted. It's called "Oh, the Memories." Um,
Mm.
it's on Amazon, and as far as I know, I'm the only cat parent as a uh, an author. That's I was a cat before I became a cat parent. I married the parent. I think that's kind of funny. Um, and then the other one is called Breast Cancer Radiant. So, Oh, the Memories is a kind of a funny um, tabletop book. I made it. It's pictures. It's an adult tabletop. Okay, that doesn't sound right. I don't want to give that connotation.
Reset.
Let me back that up. Um, I made it full of pictures for people that are going through cancer treatments. So it's kind of a gift if you know somebody who's going through cancer treatment. I thought that if they were sitting in the infusion chair just like I did, and they had a little picture book that shows what I did, it's ridiculous. You'd have to read the book. I I had reconstruction done 6 years after I had a mastectomy. So I turned my prosthesis into a doll. You're just gonna have to look
Mm.
it up, Darcie. But I made this thing into a doll, and so it's traveled around the country, and people have just taken little pictures with this silly doll, which is a prosthetic boob. It's just meant to
Yeah.
be funny. I have a sense of humor, so if that's not your cup of tea, but you can look it up. Oh, the memories, and then Breast Cancer Radiant is my devotional for those that are going through treatment. And that one has 12 different lessons that God taught me during that time of going through cancer treatment. I had blogged through it back before blogs were blogs in 2008. I had a caring bridge, and a cousin had said, "Hey, can I compile all your blogs um, and give it to a gal in my church that's going through cancer treatment?" And that was kind of the first, like, oh, I guess, maybe I'm writing something that somebody else would get encouragement from. And so writing has been a thing that I've enjoyed all of my life. And so it's probably not the biggest or the best, but it's made for people to be interactive with some lessons that I've learned. They're kind of funny, but then they're insightful to see what can God do during this time with you and him in breast cancer treatment.
I think a traveling boob is incredible. I think it is incredible.
I'll
I
send
mean,
you a signed copy.
yes, yes, I love it. I'm happy that not everybody does everything like that because, there's like testicular cancer
Yeah,
and
no.
colon cancer. And boy, we be having some weird things
Yeah,
circulating
no,
around.
no.
But how empowering. And that's the thing also is people who have gone through so many things, like picture like because I've had this happen before. You have a day and your coffee spills over, and then you get outside and your sweater hooks on something, and then
Yes.
you back up and bump the gas, or the garbage can, and then you drive down the road and somebody runs out in front of you. By the time the fifth or sixth thing happens, you're almost like, this is comical at this point because what
Yeah.
in the heck is going on?
Yes.
That's kind of like how some of our lives have gone. So
Yeah.
if somebody hears that and they're like, oh, that's bizarre, that's not bizarre for somebody who's gone through a whole bunch of trauma in their life.
Yeah.
Because at some point, you're either going to laugh about it or cry about it. And what I have found is crying about it has gotten me no place.
Yeah.
Laughing about it and trying to change how my brain is operating. I went through the whole shutdown. I went through the whole dark hole. I went through I'm done. Like, I
Yeah.
remember one time actually when I was in Chicago walking out in traffic, almost hoping I would just get hit.
Yes. I can
Like
remember.
just almost hoping for it because there was so much fear and pain and unknown in my life.
Yeah.
Had never felt so alone. Like
Yes.
I couldn't even believe it. The man that protected me from everybody but himself my whole entire life couldn't even protect me at all, couldn't protect himself even, and now I'm protecting him. This
Yeah.
weird identity thing that I had to shift over, I physically remember just watching myself. I didn't see my husband for 19 days. It's the longest we had ever been apart. And I was so excited when he was finally going to come down to Chicago and see me. And I have the picture of that day. And I remember looking at it after I was in my healing and just crying about it. Because here I remember waking up that morning like, I'm going to put on makeup and I'm going to look so nice because I get to see Eric for the first time in almost 3 weeks. And I was so non-functional. My
Mm.
face was so bloated. I was pale. I didn't even look like I took a shower. You could tell I had cried for months. I didn't
Yeah.
even look like the same person. It was weird seeing myself that way. But
Yeah.
that's trauma. That's what happens. I didn't realize either. I just knew I was going through hard stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, this is hard stuff. And then when there's an actual label,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, it checks out. That does make sense. And now I'm so grounded in my healing that I don't think there's anything that can happen in this life anymore that I won't make it through.
Yeah.
Too much has happened. And I
Yeah.
know I've made it through 100% of the things and I've changed. How could
Yeah.
you not? You know, when people say things like that, oh, Darcie's different. Well, no shit. I I
Actually,
evolved. Like,
yeah,
what do you think? You
yeah,
think that I'm going to be the same way I was 7 years ago, 39 years old, trying to figure my life out, and I
yeah.
become a caregiver, and now I'm showering my dad? You change.
Yes,
You know, so that seriously, if you're somebody and you're listening and your people are going through something, don't say things like that, because that is a good way to have your relationship be ended with somebody.
yeah,
Really, because it's insulting. It's like, what
yeah,
did you expect? For how do you stay the same?
yeah.
I mean, just crazy. So I also wrote down that your father had to turn himself, that he wouldn't turn himself in.
Right. He
You
would not.
you had to turn himself in.
Yeah.
So you had to turn him in. So your daughter comes to you and tells you that this is happening.
No, another family member
Mm,
starting to perpetrate on. So somebody else came to me and said, "This is what dad is doing." So that would be my brother, because that gives that away. Um, do you know of anything else? And of course, in the beauty of hindsight, there was that flooding of, oh my gosh, all these red flags. But since I didn't have any point of reference, I couldn't say, well, I've gone through this and therefore I know he would do that. Again, I was still telling myself I grew up in a traditional Christian home. He would never do something like that. So I had brushed all those things away. And I think that's part of trauma is a lot of times we suppress that. I might say it's like the Holy Spirit, or some people would say gut. You know, Sometimes I'll say that too, but there is that feeling like something ain't quite right, but we suppress and we suppress and we push that down and we just, no, no, that can't be, that can't be. And all of a sudden, so I went directly home and asked my daughter. Um, and that's another thing I'd just like to point out too. If anybody gets disclosed too that this is happening, that the best thing to do is act in love.
mm,
um, I've seen where people have blamed the child, and that's even happened in my own situation where my mom knew before anybody that this had happened. She'd walked in on this behavior and scolded my daughter for doing this with her grandfather. So again, I take care of her every day, but she had a
mhm.
part in it, right? She knew before anybody knew that this was going on and blamed my child. That goes back to her own dysfunction. I mean, we can explain it away. Like you, I don't want to explain anybody's behavior away,
Yep.
but I can forgive her for those things that she had a part of. Um, but I would say react in love, embrace if you can, believe that child, especially believe them until they should give you a reason. I mean, I can't imagine a child would make up a story of a sexual nature like that. That wasn't true, but
Yeah.
she was threatened that if she didn't comply, her younger daughter would be the next. So she complied. She was a teenager by the time I found out, and this had been going on for years. I'm a foster parent by this point. All of these things just were a knife to my own heart. And I thought I did have a Christian counselor at that time. And even though she'd never addressed trauma, and maybe it wasn't such a buzzword back then in 2008, but she said, "You don't need to forgive yourself." And I was like, "Yes, I do, because I'm really guilty of not protecting my child. So, yeah, I do." She goes, "Well, actually, that would be a prideful thing to consider, that you need to forgive yourself. Is not Jesus's forgiveness on the cross good enough for you? Or are you the exception to his forgiveness?" And I went,
Mhm.
mic drop,
Yep.
whoa. Because we hear that a lot in circles too. Oh, you have to forgive yourself. Just forgive yourself. Well, as Christians, I thought she was really smart, and those were wise words. It's my own pride that says that I'm special, and my sin in not protecting my child, even though unintentional, was true. I don't need to forgive myself. I need to accept that Jesus died for my sin and I've confessed that sin and I no longer have those
Mhm.
chains, right? Um, and can I believe the same thing for my father? Um, I have a hard time believing that he was a Christian man and was molesting his grandchild. I don't know what led up to that behavior. I don't think anybody grows or wakes up in the morning and says, well, today I'm going to molest my grandchild. I think
Mhm.
there were behaviors that led up to that. But could he very well be in heaven with me? Could he have done the same? I don't need to forgive myself, but I need to accept your forgiveness, God. Is he going to be in heaven? I'm not the judger of hearts, right? The Bible specifically says that you and I don't judge hearts. Jesus's job is to judge hearts. So
Yes.
I don't live um, in a seat of judgment as far as that goes. Now, is our life ever the same? Do we have boundaries in place? Am I aware? Why, yes. But I don't, as far as I know, he confesses Jesus as Lord. That's up to him and Jesus, right?
Yeah, and that's such a good point to make too. So my brother and I are, like I said, walking in a very strong faith. My other siblings are not. And we've tried to invite them to church with us and all of this stuff. And I just said at my women's ministry this last Saturday, I said, I haven't given up on it, but I know that if they want to have their come to Jesus moment, that they're going to have it. Some people have it when they have no other outlet, which is when a lot of people find the Lord, is
Yep.
when they're like, oh, if there is a God, I need him right now. But I
Mhm.
said, I know for me, when my time is called, I will not be the one that looks back and turns into a pillar of salt.
Right.
That I know for sure. Because I know I've seen too much. I know too much. God has been so good in my life. When you said, Darcie, I don't think I've reached that level yet of I would do it all over again. That's something that I've come to terms with as I am, for the first time in my life at 46 years old, authentically me.
Yeah.
I'm authentically me. And the way that that feels, like I get my own goosebumps even saying it because I did not
I've got
know
him
who
too.
I, yeah, I didn't know who I was my whole entire life. I knew that I was here to serve everybody else but myself.
Hmm.
I was an enabler. I did for everybody. I ran for everybody, and it literally got me no place good. But I start serving the Lord and walking in His light, and accepting His grace. And my life, even though I'm walking through grief right now, has never looked so beautiful. It has
Hmm.
never felt so content. It has never been so okay, and it's just, it is a really different life when you choose to walk that direction.
Yeah.
So I'm not upset about any of it. Tell me how you are current day.
Well, you had mentioned it. I had put it in my bio, so I'm just going to put a quick blurb. Through the nervous breakdown, the whole thing since 2021, I did not take medication. I have before. I'm not anti-medication, but I wanted to mention a couple of things. One was TMS. I don't know if people have heard of that, but I'm just going to throw that out. You can do your own research, where they basically can milk your serotonin, I believe, in your brain. It's like a little MRI machine that targets your serotonin and can make you happier, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, my caution to that, I tried that. That was 44 treatments that I did of that. And um, my caution was that I wasn't ready to feel yet. So I
Yeah.
was so numbed out. And if you force feeling good things, bad things also come up. So I became suicidal, um, oddly enough. So, they're making you do these assessments every time you do these, every week you're doing these treatments. And I was like, well, I wasn't ready to feel all the things. Our brain, God developed our brains to be protective. And so I would say that that might be something helpful for somebody to look into it, but also know that I was being protected because it was too much. It was all of the
Sensory
crazy.
overload.
Yes, it was way too much. And so my brain was protecting me for a good reason. The other thing I would like to bring up, because I think there is a stigma with Christians, especially, I did do ketamine treatments in an office with a nurse, I can't say it, anesthetist. Look it
You
up.
know what she's
Well,
saying.
yeah, you can look at it. So I did it. I didn't do any street drugs, but I really think that I would like to remove stigma just as a Christian who did the research before I went in. It's expensive. I know it's not for everybody, but there is the concept of neuroplasticity. And when your thought patterns, I think most people would know about the ruts in our brains. We have those tapes with. I'm old enough to talk about tapes that used to play in my head. Maybe you're not quite old enough for that, but
No, I had tapes. I used to stick the pencil in and rewind
yeah.
them and stuff.
Okay. So we have those tapes that are rutted in our brains. And in order to get out of those, I will say that ketamine probably did at least a year, 2 or 3 years worth of healing work in my brain. Because when you're in that plastic state, it wasn't new agey. Okay, the office I went to was, they want to do sage in the room, and they're everything I'm not. Okay, they had no idea that I was like, please don't burn sage. I hate the smell of it, and I don't believe any of that crap. But I was able to speak, Holy Spirit, heal me. Okay, when your brain is in that neuroplastic state, you can speak truth into your brain that otherwise I was speaking not truth, right? I was believing lies. And that was part of the healing of, I believed that God gave me my second husband as a gift, and I couldn't reconcile, okay, he just ruined my brain. He's did this terrible. Well, I had to remove the words I thought. I thought he was a good gift. Maybe God was trying to get my attention to go, no, don't, no. But because I chose to just barrel through and make that, maybe God was trying to protect me. And I thought that he was giving me a good gift when he was likely probably trying to go, exit stage left, lady,
Mhm.
or my child. He probably doesn't say lady to me. But speaking that healing, I'm just going to say, if somebody had questions, it's a tool. Um, it's a tool to take advantage of that neuroplasticity, and you can do it as a Christian and speak life and healing and all the things, not to do it ourselves, but to invite Holy Spirit um, into a beautiful place where we actually absorb that information. I know it might be a reach too far for some people, but I do want to destigmatize that a little bit because it's going to keep coming. You're going to start hearing more and more about psychedelics and how they are helpful for brain transformation. I'm not saying that that takes the place of Holy Spirit. I am not. I'm just saying I got myself out of my own way so that I could receive truth.
Yeah, that's the thing. I recently actually became an NLP practitioner. So I really did learn a lot about our brains, our subconscious, and connecting it to our conscious and what we're all doing. And, now I have the ability to work with people. I can't give you a psychedelic type of feeling, but I
Yeah.
can help you get to a calm, peaceful place where we are able to start making better decisions, where we can do a program and swish who you see yourself as now with the woman or the man that you want to be.
Mhm.
Like I always tell people, I don't work with people who have anxiety and depression. I can work with you and we can help anxious thoughts. But, a therapist, a counselor, a psychologist, that's something way different than a practitioner. But going through that, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many things about my brain that I just realized that I'm stopping it from even happening because of the
Right.
fear. It's
That's
the
right.
fear of it. So now that I have done this, practitioner now for the last few months, the people that I'm working with, when they start and they're in their mood and this is what I need to work on. I worked with an ex-sheriff, a man in particular, all tatted up, lots of PTSD, breaking stuff, just angry man. And by the end of it, he had the biggest smile on his face. And I was like, oh, but that's the thing.
Beautiful.
Whatever it is you choose to do, Whatever that looks like for you, it is a choice.
That's
And if
right.
you're going to make that choice, make sure you're making that choice for the right reason. You
Yeah.
know, regardless if it's something that was offered to you for $0 or if it's something that's $1 million, the only thing that's going to help you is if you choose to allow it to work. You
Right.
know, you have to, I talk a lot about self-love. You know, like the average person has about, I would guess, three self-help books in their house, which is great. It's a great read. But if you don't love yourself, you're not going to apply the learnings. And
That's
that's
right.
how all of this works. Whether it's doing ketamine in a controlled environment, whether it's NLP with me,
Hmm.
I don't have a magic wand, a magic word. You know, this is you having to love yourself enough to apply the learnings to take care of yourself. And we
Hmm.
can all do this.
Yeah.
Every single person that's been on my podcast has gone through a transformation of being stuck in trauma and now grounded in healing by whatever method they chose that worked for them.
Yeah.
So, you know, for here, it's a no judgment zone. I
Yeah.
am just so happy to hear when people have released that trauma where they're able to stay grounded in healing. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that we don't have a moment.
Right.
But that's why I say that. Let it be a moment. You can
Yeah.
have a something as an activator. I don't even say triggered anymore because the word trigger just gets me and I don't even like that word. So I say
Okay.
activated. So if you feel activated, allow that to last for a moment. Give yourself grace, but move forward.
Right.
Move forward. We're not in quicksand anymore. You
Right.
know, like a lot of us are getting sucked down and just allowing it to consume and overtake us. And there's so much life out here to live. You know, there's no time limit on healing or grief. But hear me when I say there's a time limit on our life. There's a
Yes.
time limit on our life. And I'll tell you what, you are not going to ever be on your deathbed one day saying, man, I wish that I would have stayed stuck in trauma longer. You're going to be saying, I really wish I would have taken the appropriate steps to move forward in my healing.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
You said it. Preach.
Well, I've been kind of stuck in my healing for a little while.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's
Yeah.
gold. If people grab a hold of what you just said, gold.
Yes. Well, my goodness, I wish you didn't live so far away. I think you and I have a lot in common. So I'm really proud of you. I'm so happy to hear the things that you have walked through in your life and that you have grounded yourself. And I'm proud of you for sharing it because I know that even when we're grounded, you know, I still shed a tear every now and then because that there is still pain
Yeah.
because there was love.
Yeah.
Because at one point, you know, you don't ever get married to get divorced. You don't ever have kids to have them estrange you. You don't ever, you know, introduce your children to people to have them be hurt, but this is the type of world that we live in. And the sooner that we can just wrap our brain around the fact that we are nothing but mere mortal humans down here, and God's got control of everything all of the time. And if we continue to put our trust in Him, I promise He's going to continue to walk you through it. I mean, he's been doing it for me for a long time, and the hardest time of my life right now has turned out to be a very beautiful time. So, yeah, I've been really honored to hear your story and to get to know you. I absolutely have really enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you for being so open and humbling yourself to come and share all of that with me.
Yeah. I think that that's where it's at, right? I mean, God calls us to be servants and humble and vessels. And some of us have to learn that the hard way. And that is rawly and organically done. And I just point glory to him. If there's glory in that story, it's not because of me, but allowing him to shine through, right? So
Mm.
that's definitely my encouragement. Thank you for hosting this School of Hard Knocks. As soon as I saw that you were looking for, I was like, oh, I'll send
I'm
it to
a
you.
multi-graduate of that
Yeah, I got my tassel. I've already crossed it over.
one.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So this is great. I just hope that people sit in the healing. So as much as you're talking about choices, I would say there's no pill, there's no treatment, there's no nothing. None of that takes the place of doing the work.
yep.
And sometimes the work is giving it daily over to Jesus But we also just don't go. I don't think that that's ever been a case where we just go, okay, give it to God, and then we aren't responsible to do something, right? We could be
Mhm.
in that word. There was years that I didn't. I looked at scriptures and it was, you know what? I'll pray the scriptures because I didn't have any prayers to give. So I found a psalm. Anybody can do that. You find a psalm and you pray it. You say it, you speak it, even if you don't feel it. So um, take that opportunity to do things. As you said, choices, choices, choices equal a life. And you may not feel anything, but do the things that are healing and give yourself time and grace to go, okay, maybe my brain's not healed quite yet, but I'm going to keep doing healing things. And someday you will come out of it. I know I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it, but here I am talking to you, and everybody
Yeah.
has that opportunity. So good on you for talking about those choices. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of like, if you don't like drinking water,
Which I
but
don't.
you gotta drink the
You
water
gotta drink the
because we
water.
need the water.
That's
It's
right.
the same thing. Like we honestly, we need God to survive.
Yes.
You can go through and you can exist in this world, but you don't really start living until you have God as a part of your life. If you
Mhm.
haven't given yourself over to the Lord yet, if you haven't opened a Bible, starting in Psalms is a beautiful place to start. Definitely find, your favorite psalm and yeah, just make that a daily habit because when you know that there is at least one person, one entity, one thing in this life that will never forsake you, never leave you, and you will never be alone, you're going to start looking at faith a lot differently. So if you haven't found God or you're somebody who's not interested in God, I still love you. I mean, I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to love you. But I'm telling you, as part of my trauma toolbox that I talk about, that is the first tool that I reach for each and every time is my Bible, a verse, a prayer, an uplifting Christian song. I mean, something along those lines that's going to throw my hands up and just say, okay, and I surrender. And once you surrender and you're walking with God, I end every single one of these. You guys know it. I always say, and when you're walking with God, healing is always possible because that has been my life and that has been my experience. So, yeah, Kat, thanks for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for doing what you do. I'm so blessed and privileged to have met you through this. It's great.
Oh, well, I'm always around, so don't go too far.
I'm sure we'll talk.
We will. All right, guys, you know exactly what to do. Go and find Kat. You can actually find her at Coach with PRACE.com.
Well, so it should be Coach with Pure Peace. So that's the name of my coaching business. I am a trauma coach. So coach with purepeace.com.
All right, that is where you guys are going to go and make sure that you support, you love, you like, you follow anywhere that you see here because I'm going to reiterate it. There's more than enough room at the top of this mountain for all of us. And when you are walking with the Lord, healing is always possible. I'll see you guys in the next episode. I'd like to thank you for sharing your time with me today. And I'm so proud of you for stepping into your healing journey. Please share this with every single person that you know. I'm here to make the biggest impact possible, and I can only do that with you by my side. I hope you hit that follow button and you save me to your library so you never miss an episode. We just took another break out of your wall, and remember, with God, healing is always possible. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.